Paulette with Back to Basics Mom here. So today I want to show you what it's like to take your very first steps with your Brother Scan and Cut. This is my Scan and Cut 350. Up till now, this is the most current at-home machine that you can buy without going to a dealer. It's a pretty basic machine. It is Wi-Fi capable. I do not have that on this machine because I did not buy the extra activation. Today we are not going to do anything online. I am just going to show you the basics of the first few things that, in my opinion, you should do to get to know your machine when you take it out of the box. So let's get started. So you're going to take it out of the box. You're going to plug it in here, plug it into power. I do have a few customizations on my machine, so don't worry about that. So basically plug it in. You have your little screen here, and it does click up and sit up on its own. There are little legs behind here that kind of move into place so you can have it at different angles. But basically it clicks all the way up to there, and then it folds back. So it's got like 1, 2, 3, and then you pull it up all the way and it's ready to fold down. I try not to mess around with it too much because I have heard of people having connection errors. So let's try that angle for you. I'm actually going to put it down like that to see if you guys can see that. So let's see. The way I have my camera here, it's kind of hard to see what you guys... Okay, that looks good. All right, so first thing you want to do, turn it on. You're always going to get this message. You can turn it off. I just leave it. Hit OK. So this is what your screen's going to look like. So the very first thing I want to do is we're going to go in and we're going to look and see all the things that are available to you to cut without even hooking up to the internet or Brother Online or anything like that, because that is the beauty of this machine, is it is standalone. So we're going to go into pattern. And I highly encourage you to go in here and to look through all of this stuff. So this is what your basic screen is going to look like. There, hopefully that's a little bit less glare. And so here's basic shapes and then other shapes. So you've got 10 pages here of basic shapes. Now keep in mind, you can cut these any size down from teeny tiny all the way up to as big as the size of your mat. So you've got all of these. I'm just scrolling down over here on the arrow. You can go back. We're going to go in here. Now, just because you see these are just folders. There's more stuff inside here. This is just kind of giving you a category. So you go in there, there's 2 more pages of stuff. See? Go in here. You get all those things you can cut. This one, you get 2 pages. Look at all this. Animals, cats, dogs, paw prints, sea life. Look at all this stuff. It's amazing. And then down here, there's frames, there's tags, there's all kinds of stuff for card making and scrapbooking, and you can change the sizes on this stuff too. It's just awesome. Scrapbooking, you've got backgrounds, you've got all kinds of stuff. Well, I didn't notice. That might be fun. You could create a little house. I might have to mess around with that one. I haven't seen that before. Did not notice. Every time I look in here, I find something different. Okay, so I realized when I was going back through my video and editing that I was completely out of frame when I was telling you guys about the blade holder. So we just got done talking about our patterns, and we were in here and looking around all our patterns, and so we're going to go back and talk about our blade holder. In a few minutes we're going to work on just cutting some basic shapes, but before we do that we have to talk about our blade. So when you get your machine, this will likely come wrapped separate. There will be a little cover over this. You want to make sure you take that off. Honestly, I don't even know where mine is. It's not something that you need. So the first thing you're going to do, now I do have another video about blade care and maintenance that I will try to link below. And excuse me, the biggest thing you want to know, especially when you're doing a really big change in your blade depth, is you want to turn this all the way up and then back to your number. But before we get started with that, I'm going to take this off because I want to actually show you what it looks like inside here. So this is what it looks like inside. Your blade comes out. This is what your blade looks like. Only buy Brother blades. There are some on the market that are a little bit cheaper, that are a different brand name. This housing is longer on those generic ones, so it's one of those things I highly recommend. I'm all for saving a buck, but you do not want to do that on your blades. So make sure you use genuine Brother blades. And it just sits back in here. It's kind of a magnet. You'll kind of hear it click in there by itself. You get this spring, and that's one of the reasons everybody's settings are different. If you ask me, in my opinion, is, you know, each spring is always going to be a little bit different, and that's kind of what houses everything. And each is just, you know, a little bit different. If you ever see me giving feedback and telling you to check your blade housing and make sure there's no little bits up in there, I want you to take this off. Look in here, see if there's any little bits. Look down in here, take a Q-tip, blow in it. If any little bits of paper or vinyl or debris get stuck in here, it is going to mess with your cutting. So that's one of my first tips is if you're having trouble with cutting, take this out, take that off, check in there. So we're going to crank it all the way up to 12. 12 is the deepest. And I think you can see that's sticking out pretty far. And now we're going to turn it all the way down to 0. Now, for vinyl and things like that, you're going to probably cut anywhere between a 1/2 and a 1 just to get that really light cut because it's so fine. I was cutting some yesterday, and a bunch of it I was doing it, and I only had it on the 1/2 mark. So that was really cool. So then for cardstock, which we're going to cut today, I generally cut that like right around a 2. And that's where I recommend you start with cardstock. Like if you're using just generic, you know, from the craft store, unless it is super heavy. And then you could maybe start it at a 3, but I still recommend starting at a 2. And I'll explain that a little bit more because it's better to have to cut the same design a couple of times, which I'm going to show you in a minute, than to cut through your mat. And even if you cut through your mat, you can still salvage it. Don't stress out. So that's the nice thing about this machine is there's a fix for most things. If you're patient and can troubleshoot, we can make it work. But you have to kind of pick a starting point and work through the steps. You can't like just jump in the middle and whatnot. So at least with me, that's how my mind works. So we're going to put this back in and make sure it's seated in there real good. So if it's cockeyed or anything like that, it's not going to work. And make sure this is clicked down tight. If it's not clicked down tight, it's not going to work. So make sure that's pushed down tight. And now we're going to get on to doing some cutting. I'm going to pause it for a minute here and try to resume to the other video I filmed earlier. So we're going to cut a basic shape. So let's just go here. All these shapes to choose from. We're going to scroll down. Let's just do a circle. Now, this is your basic screen you're going to work with most of the time and with changing your size and things like that. So for right now, let's just hit set. This is going to bring you to the other main screen. Now, say you get here and you're thinking about cutting this out. That'll be fine. Oh, you know what? I don't need it that big. I want to make some changes. Where you want to go to make changes is this screen right here. See how that's outlined in red? You can drag it around anywhere you want, but I want to change the size. So there's all these options over here. So for changing size, you want to go to this box right here. So it brings us back to that one we were at before. So I just want to make this a 2-inch circle. So right now our ratios are locked, our height and our width. That is this button. It's always locked until you unlock it. So I'm going to bring my size down to a 2-inch circle. I'm just kind of holding that. As you get closer, you can tap it. Get it down to 2 inches. Okay. Now, if I'm like, wait a minute, I want kind of an oval-y shape, but I don't want to go back to the shapes page, what do? Well, this is our aspect ratio, you know, our height versus width. Click on that. Now watch. I'm going to hit just the width. See how that changes? Now I'm going to go back, bring it back down to 2. And then you can do the same with height. See? Bring it back down to 2. There are some applications where this comes in really handy for some shapes, but we're going to keep it locked. All right. So now we're going to hit OK. And now I want to cut this out. Well, we need some paper. So I have some just basic black cardstock. This stuff is a little thin. This is just like the cheap stuff from Joann's. It's just this stuff. So every cardstock will be just a tiny bit different. This is your mat. This is the newer mat. You'll see some people have mats. I just took off the cover sheet. You want to keep that. Some people have mats. This is my original mat that came with my machine. It's well loved. But this is just your clear cover sheet that comes off. I keep mine. Some people don't. I do like to keep mine. I'm going to line up some paper and press it down. Now when your mat's new, you won't have to press it down quite so hard, and you'll learn that some cardstocks react with these mats better than others. Some stick worse, some are better. It's just kind of a trial and error thing. So also, if you're having trouble getting your paper stuck down, I highly recommend a brayer. There's many shapes and varieties of this. This is just the one I have, and you can push that down. So now we're going to load our mat. I'm going to push this back. I just have my machine on the corner of my desk, and I have this little shelf to help me get a little bit more space, but it gets in the way a little bit when I'm showing you. Now, I am going to load it with my paper more towards me, because when you're checking your cuts, it's a lot easier to check it when it's down here versus way snugged up against the machine. So to load your mat, there's these 2 ridges. Right here, your mat sits right here. So you just set it in there, and I just kind of let it feed itself, and I hold it up here, and like I'm not pushing, I'm just supporting the weight of the mat, so the pressure is on that front edge, and we're going to hit this button right here. This is our load mat button. Okay. Now I want to see where my paper is so I can place my circle for the best possible placement. So we need to scan our paper in. So to do that, from right here, we're going to hit OK. And this is our little scanner icon. All right, so now we can see here is our circle, here is our cardstock. I'm going to cut it way down over here so I can see to test for if it's cut. You know what, because I'm with you guys today, I'm going to do it a little bit We'll do this. Okay. And then hit OK. So when you're on your own, it's easier because it's easier to be able to get better access to it. Now, I want to make sure that's really snugged up in that corner well, because I like to make the most of my paper. So to see that up closer, we're going to go to this screen right here, and we're going to hit the plus sign. Now, it's already enlarged to 200%. You know what? I want to see it bigger. So you got to move your mat around a little bit by using the arrows. Now I can see exactly where my placement is. You see this little funky line right here? That is because I need to clean my scanner glass, which I will talk about on another day. I just have a little bit of muck on my screen in there that I need to clean off. So, but I just go by the black outline of the paper. And okay, it's placed where I want it. Thank goodness for those red lines with the black circle on the black paper. All right, we are ready to cut. So we are going to hit OK, and then we're going to hit OK again. And now I'm ready to cut. So I'm going to hit the cut. Now, it gives you another chance to make sure this is really what you want to do. But before I cut, what we need to do is we need to check our settings in here. I forgot to show you this earlier. So this is very important. Depending on what medium you're cutting, this is where you do all your maintenance. So generally, where you want to be is here. You will use this screen a lot. I recommend you go into your settings when you're getting ready to use your machine the first time, and the very first thing I want you to do is to put your cut speed at a 1. Now, it's probably going to be higher than that when you get the machine, and Brother generally recommends it higher. I'm going to tell you from my experience, and a lot of people I really trust that have a lot of success with their machines, I recommend keeping it at a 1. You will hear other things from other people. It is ultimately up to you. But if you want to be kind to your machine, kind to your blade, kind to your mats, kind to your paper, that is my personal recommendation. Now, I never go above a cut pressure of a -1. You can go all the way up to a 9. And if you're cutting something thick like cork or leather or something, you might need to put it higher. But generally for cardstock and vinyls and things like that, you are always going to keep it at a minus. I do have a few things that I use a -9 that are really fussy. Anything with a super really intricate design, you're going to want to drop your pressure, but we'll talk about that another day. Today we're just doing a basic cut. So this is basic cardstock. So I am going to do mine at a -1. This is pretty much my settings for most things with doing cardstock. So then we're going to hit OK. And now we are ready to cut. I still have my blade from before. It's still on a 2. So I'm going to leave it there because that for me is a good place to start. If you're not sure and you want to really be careful, you can drop it down to a 1 or a 1. You know what? I'm going to drop it down because I want to show you in case it doesn't cut through. So I'm going to drop it down to a 1. In there snug, snapped in, and we're going to start. Now, one of my best tips for you is when you get to this point, leave your mat in the machine. Do not take your mat out of the machine. Let's see if I can scooch this back so I can show you. I'm going to turn my camera a little bit. So, you can see right there, I bent it up. I can see that my design has cut all the way. That's awesome. If it hadn't, I could come back up here and hit cut again. I could just go back up to here and I could hit cut again. So let's try, let's see. Since that cut, I am going to unload my mat. Sometimes your paper will curl a little bit, and you are going to see marks, and you are going to see paper residue. Now, this will make your mat less sticky, but we'll get to that at the end, how to take care of that. Let's grab some heavier cardstock. Let's see. All right, this is the Hobby Lobby Heavyweight. This is pretty close to like a Stampin' Up! Cardstock, and I don't want to put this whole thing down because it just gets my mat sticky. So I'm just going to cut. This is great for using scraps, so this will kind of show you how you can utilize scraps. So I'm just going to take this. I'm going to stick it down. Load my mat back in. Just want to make sure it's in that channel. Okay, so I need to go back because I need to scan this paper in. So I can just go back here. I still have my shape. I don't have to get rid of my shape or my design that I've built or whatever. But I can put in a new piece of paper and I can scan it. Alright, so I'm just going to drag. I'll go over here this time. And I like to see it close up because I'm getting older and my eyes are not what they used to be. So there. Okay. All right, so this cardstock is heavier, but I'm going to cut it on that same setting and we're going to see if it's going to work because I'm trying to show you what it's like when it doesn't cut. So what you can do. Turn my camera. Now let's see. All right, this time, I don't know if you can see that, but I cannot see any white. That did not cut through. So I had my blade too light. So you hit OK. Don't worry, it's not a problem. Go here, take my blade. I'm going to turn it just halfway. I don't want to go all the way to a 2 because you can cut through your mats. And you want to just have the lightest cut you can. So I'm just going to turn it up half a notch. And I'm simply going to hit cut again. I left everything where it was. You might have to press that little piece of paper to back down into your mat a little bit. And I am simply going to cut it again. All right, let's see. All right, it still did not cut. That's okay. This will happen, especially when you're using a heavier cardstock and you're getting used to your machine and your settings. Now I'm going to crank it all the way up to a 2. You can keep a little notebook. Not that that's always going to be 100% accurate, but it helps give you a starting point of which cardstocks work best with which settings. You'll get a better feel for it as you go along. So now I'm just going to cut again. All right. Now, hey, that time it worked. Look at that. No sweat. Actually, I probably would put it up a little bit more because I do have a little fuzzy edge on there, but that's okay. If you have a sanding block, you can sand that down, but that's good enough. I want to show you, again, if you're going to be cutting a super scrolly design, the kind of test cut I do. There is a test cut here, but it just does a little square, and that's not always a true representation if you're cutting a very scrolly design. So what I have learned to do is I go into here, and I go into this section, and it's got some real scrolly, fine shapes. I like this one. It's fairly simple. I don't waste too much paper. I shrink it down as low as it'll let me go here, and then just hit OK. We can shrink it down more once I get it on the paper. All right, so here's our design. I want to change the size, so we're going to go to this screen up here like I've showed you, before, and go over here. This is where we change our size, and I'm going to make that really tiny. So it's going to be like, I only want it like a 1/2 inch wide. Okay, now we need to place it, and I want to see where that is. Okay, I'm going to do it right there. Scrolly designs I don't like to do too close to the edge because sometimes it can peel off. So just do OK, hit OK, and now we're ready to cut. Okay, so let me turn this back down. I can see that it pretty much looks like it's cut. I have another design here I did when I had forgotten to turn my camera back up and show you that one. So that one's slightly larger, but there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can kind of peel. Oh, that one cut good. You can see that one. I'm not quite sure if it cut right. So I am going to take this one off. This is not the best way to do this. It's because I messed up and I cut that one by accident. So just to make sure, this smaller one that I just did for you cut good, because it looks like it's stuck in a few small spots. So I'm going to cut it again, and I'm not going to change my blade. I'm just going to hit cut again, just because I know that it's a good depth, but because it's a fine cut, sometimes it just needs a second pass. Get that stuck down good again. I have a pokey tool because I got this with my scan and cut, and I'm just going to see if that little circle spot, okay, that came out. I'm hoping you can see this. There we go. Now I know you can see it. All right, so I often gotta be real careful because anytime you have these super scrolly designs, and they have these little tiny hooky areas. This is, if it's not going to cut somewhere, it's going to be like right in here. So you need to be really careful when you're taking things apart. And if it's not going to cut, that's where it's going to be. So if I was doing this again with this cardstock, a scrolly design, I would probably move my blade all the way up to, for sure, a 3.5, and probably cut twice. I might even cut on a 2, the first cut, and then move it up to a 2.5 for the second cut. So, but that's something that you're going to learn over time, and I don't want you to be afraid of. But that is the biggest thing I learned, is if I'm going to be cutting a super scrolly design, to do my test cut with a super scrolly design. So that was like an eye-opener for me. So, I'm going to unload my mat. Turn this back up. You see the machine. I'm just going to hit OK. I'm done with this. I'm going to go to the home screen. Close this up. Now, that is how you get started with basic shapes, basic settings. When you're done, your mat is going to have some marks on it. That's okay. And it's going to have some little paper bits and things like that. So you can leave it, put your cover on, wait till the next time, which is what I'm going to do. So next time I will show you how to clean this before you get started. But do not worry if you see little etch marks in your mat. Also, the first couple of times you use your mat, before it cuts, I don't know if you can see right here. Let's see. Here and here. Your machine will do little, I don't know if you can hear that. It did little cuts there up at the top. It'll do that. Don't worry about it. I'm going to show you my other mats. It's kind of how it prepares to do its thing. But these are my very well-loved mats, and you'll notice up on the edge all of those little tick marks. Some of them cut through to the back, some of them don't. But don't worry about it. It's not on your cutting surface. Don't worry about it. Okay, so I noticed in my editing that I had a little hiccup in my recording, and I lost memory right at the end of my video when I was telling you about what happens if you get a hole in your mat. And basically, if you cut through your mat, it is not a big deal. Don't freak out. We can fix it. So I did one time cut through my mat, and I don't know if you can see, it's just a really tiny hole, and I just patched it with some Scotch tape. If yours is bigger, most people that have been cutting with a scan and cut for a long time have cut through their mat at some point in time. So this is just Scotch tape. Like I said, if it's bigger, packing tape, that will help you seal it. So basically, don't freak out if you cut through your mat. So I just wanted to thank you once again for stopping by, for watching my videos, for liking and hitting those thumbs up, for subscribing, and yeah, I will see you another day. Have a great day. Find something crafty to do, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.